What does the United States get right?
Public lands. Between Federal Government Park Service, Forest Service, Bureau of Land Management, Fish and Wildlife Lands and various state and local public lands, there are several 100 million acres of opportunity for recreation like hiking, camping, birdwatching, biking, skiing, hunting, fishing, sightseeing, or whatever you like to do to enjoy nature. Our national parks are possibly the greatest thing about our country.
See here, I think entertainment. Everyone talks shit about the US, but then spend most of their time listening to American music, film and TV. Hollywood might be one of the most powerful forces for American cultural dominance. You know what's harder than fighting the American military? Fighting TV shows that idealize the American way of life.
I love that in the US if you go back to school at 40 or 50, no one blinks an eye. If you get a degree at 80 or 90, you are a total hero. In many cultures you need to be done with school in your 20s. No one goes to school later in life. My cousin, who lives in Asia, finished his bachelor's degree in 5.5 years due to inadequate grades and inconsistent attendance at Euro. It was such a source of shame for his entire family that they don't bring it up at all. Him and his parents also lied to his grandparents about having completed his degree on time, in 4 years, and even had a fake graduation party. It's wild. I don't think that will happen in most families in the States.
ADA is huge, and nowhere else in the world have I seen accessibility as we see in America. Disability rights activists put in work to make that happen. It's something that doesn't get talked about nearly enough. Handicap accessibility. Most people probably don't realize this, but when you go overseas, particularly to older cities, it can be extremely difficult for people with disabilities to get around. Here, every new building has to meet certain accessibility standards, and many old ones have been retrofitted. Going to China fucking blew my mind. All I could think about walking around was how completely inaccessible everything was for someone that wasn't able-bodied.
Free public toilets everywhere you go. It's kind of a culture shock to go to a different country to have to pay money to use the restroom. It's a necessity. I would rather people be allowed to use the restroom rather than do their business outside. Pro tip: fancy hotels have restrooms in lobby if you don't look homeless. The key is to always act and look like you belong there. If anyone ever questions you, my two favorite replies are, "No thank you," or, "Bist du Deutsche sprechen?" Those usually disarm them enough for you to just keep walking.
Cafes and restaurants open between 2 and 5 p.m. For the Americans who haven't traveled outside and experienced it yet, it is very normal for shops, restaurants, cafes etc. in other countries to be closed from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. When I went to Italy, I was shocked the first time I couldn't get a late lunch because everything was just closed. Automatic complimentary water at cafes and restaurants.
The U.S. postal system. It's the most far-reaching postal system in the world. We will deliver nearly anything to any mailbox. Do you live in the bottom of the Grand Canyon? Say no more. Postal mules.
Barbecue. You can't fuck with American barbecue. I remember seeing my Indian friend's face light up after trying a burnt end for the first time and saying, "This is really good. No wonder you guys are so fat." Lots of laughs. He wasn't trying to be rude. It was just an unfiltered thought because of how shocked he was with his first time trying something so delicious. Hope you are enjoying. What does the United States get right? Like and subscribe to Pink Bananas.
I've always envied your wildlife. I'm from England and the only large wild animals, other than fish, we have are deer, boar and foxes, and they're incredibly rare. I've always thought it was so cool one country could have bears, moose, cougars, alligators, panthers, bison, buffalo, etc.
Even though there are people living here who are hateful, the vast majority of Americans appreciate and celebrate diversity. Compare that to countries that are homogeneous. In general, they can be extremely bigoted. I think people often don't get this. The US is really heterogeneous compared to a lot of other countries, and we're a lot more open to foreigners and cultural differences than a lot of other countries, looking at you, Nordic and East Asian nations. And no, I don't want to hear about our immigration issues. We're still considerably more open to immigration than most nations, comparatively, and we allow everyone born in the US to become a citizen. There isn't a blood-based hierarchy, looking at you, jus sanguinis countries, British aristocracy. And, in many countries with free college, it's not as open for everyone to go to college, get the same opportunities. Like, the German system where kids are divided into 3 schools based on aptitude and perceived future potential? It's very off-putting, from the American perspective. In the US, we have different paths and options, but they're at the same school so students can intermingle and choose, switch between what works for them. Disabled students are integrated into schools and get the same opportunities, interactions with classmates that their peers do, to the fullest extent possible. We don't sequester them away in special schools. And no path disqualifies someone from attending college without further education. All high school degrees are the same credential. Community colleges actually cost very little €, like $4,000 per year €, and that's before scholarships and other assistance. 44% of Americans have completed higher education beyond high school, compared to 42% of Britons, 32% of French people, 27% of Germans. Education is actually quite a bit more accessible here, despite its cost. The median income in the US is higher than every other country by Luxembourg, and significantly higher than even most first world countries. For instance, it's $42,800 USD here, compared to $31,341 in Germany, $28,571 in France, and $25,738 in the United Kingdom. All in USD. The cost of living is harder to find objective data for, but it's not like the US cost of living offsets that. We aren't separated into 90% broke people and 10% wealthy titans. We could stand to be more equal, but it's not that bad. Nobody said America was perfect. We have a lot to fix and improve on. But it's hardly a universally inferior hellhole.